Welcome back to the Freedom Family. I'm Casey Peterson.
And I'm Michael Peterson.
And we're talking about gratitude tonight, one of the 12 core values, core American values. Our mission of Freedom Families United is to reclaim the kids and restore American values. And this one is so much more deep and profound than I think a lot of people realize, especially for your children. And we're going to dive into that because on its surface, I think people understand gratitude, but when you really get into it with people, they really don't understand the power and necessity of it. You get a lot of eye rolls when you start talking about gratitude. Yeah. But first, let's review our three main points from last week.
So last week we talked about presence. And the three main things we want you to remember was being present means that you are physically and mentally there without distractions. Number 2 was that love is spelled T-I-M-E. And we wanted you to introspect a little bit and determine how many hours are you willing to give the people that you love this week, so last week.
Those undistracted hours, not just being with them, but actually being there mentally without distractions. Now, the question to get this all kicked off, starting with the youngest kids, what is gratitude and why would it be one of our core values? Mm-hmm. If we're going to pick just 12 core values, why would gratitude even make the cut? Now, gratitude, the three main points about gratitude that we want to remember this lesson throughout the week, and we'll go over these again at the end of the lesson like always. But number 1, gratitude is perspective. Number 2, becoming resilient is impossible without gratitude. And finally, how will you work on gratitude personally this week? That's something you can think about throughout this lesson. Now, gratitude is a lot of times thought of as this sort of positive state of mind. And yes, it is a positive state of mind, but it's much deeper than that, right? Gratitude as a tool for overcoming life's darkest, most depressing moments is when it is the most powerful. When I say gratitude equals perspective, it means that when you look at the world through a lens of gratitude, it grants you that perspective, puts things in perspective. And I have told myself many times I've used this tool. It's kind of a tool that's associated with Stoicism, but at its core, it is the most base level of gratitude. When I'm feeling extremely down, I'll tell myself that better people have gone through far worse. And I know that might seem like negative, but it really is something that puts things in perspective, or telling yourself, asking, is this a first world problem? And 99% of the time or more, probably a lot more, yes, the answer is yes, it is. Your problems are pretty minimal when you put them in perspective with the power of gratitude. But just that simple tool of saying better people have gone through far worse than me, that has lifted me out of so many deep, dark moments. And we think that this is such an important value for our youth today, just because looking purely at the depression rates and especially at the teen suicide rates.
Yeah, teaching your children the power of gratitude is essential if we want them to be strong enough to overcome any darkness or challenge that they come up to. So by saying better people have gone through far worse, you're telling yourself that you're strong, you're telling yourself that you're capable, and you're looking at that through that framework of gratitude. It's really the anti-entitlement in a world of instant gratification and victimhood status, right? Becoming resilient is impossible without gratitude, and we have to teach our kids that.
And this is a bit of a difficult subject to breach, because if anybody's gone through this with somebody they know or love, when we talk about a child that committed suicide, they probably beat themselves up internally about what they could have done different, how they failed, and a lot of times they say, oh, they just didn't know, or there's nothing they could have done. But the fact is, typically when you dig into these things, these children, if they had been given most of them, if they had been actually given the core value of gratitude and they lived it and learned to live it at a very young age, they would have been able to pull themselves out of this very, temporary problem, and they get this irreversible, horrific solution to this temporary problem because they lack perspective. They get overwhelmed. They aren't resilient. It's that whole analogy. We're raising children as if they were candles, right? Protecting them, making sure their flame doesn't get blown out. And we should be treating our children at a very young age like they're fires, like they're bonfires. And when the winds blow, they get stronger because of it, not the other way around. It's this idea we need to be teaching our children of anti-fragility. We don't go over and pave the jungle, pave the forest, and we don't go and take the weights out of the weight room. If you want your kids to get stronger, you have to build that resilience. They have to have that abrasion. And our kids will come home to us and talk about a hard day at school and, be broken down, be like, I don't even want to go back to school, or have a really hard day with friends, interaction. And we've sat them down multiple times now and said, just to let you know, I'm glad you have a good time at school or with your friends most of the time. I don't send you there for the social interactions that are so good. I'm glad you have them. I'm glad you have good interactions mostly. But we send you there primarily for the negative interactions. We send you there to grow. And you cannot grow without being uncomfortable, without the pain, without the stress. You cannot grow. And then we talk through those things, and it's a lesson to teach them about how to deal with these complicated situations and highlight values, right? You say, this person's acting like this. What should you do in this situation if you see somebody else treating a friend or classmate or somebody else you don't know like that? How should you step in? When should you stand up for people, right? So it's this idea we need to be teaching our children about anti-fragility and being resilient. Resilience is our value for next week, but it starts with gratitude. That's why they're paired together. We typically do these in pairs. Number 1 and 2 values are paired together, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, because they complement each other so well. So
and sometimes
anti-fragility.
I feel like it might be a little bit morbid to look at it like from another perspective by having that basic gratitude for life, whether it's, obviously for my own life, I'm so grateful you're alive. And every day we get together, even if we've had a struggle, with the kids or with each other, it's like, I am grateful to be alive. I'm grateful to have another day to work on the struggles, to work on the challenges. Just teaching your kids to be grateful for their lives and being grateful yourself, for your life. And then on top of that, you can then go forward and say, okay, how do I make it better? How do I face these challenges today?
It's like the most simplistic level of gratitude, saying that you're literally just happy for your existence. And the reason it's profound is because, once again, obviously some people get to that point where they become unhappy with even their own existence, feel like there is no joy to be had in life. And so we really need to work on giving kids that perspective. And if your kids have that perspective, make sure they know how to transfer it to their friends. They're going to have the opportunities throughout their life multiple times. I already have, being in the military, being in the Army, talking to buddies struggling with this sort of depression and suicidal thoughts. We've lost a lot of friends. And it's one of those things that you need to be able to transfer that value of gratitude to somebody sometimes very quickly. And so something they don't need to come up with this to be sideswiped at one point. They have to be prepared to say, hey, if one of your friends is extremely depressed, talking like this or talking like this, you need to jump in and catch it and do something about it. It is your duty as a fellow human to talk about that.
Absolutely.
And let's get into the discussion. These questions are just to kind of spark the conversation in your family, and you probably have some of your own questions to ask your family, but hopefully these help you to get that conversation started.
So have you or someone close to you displayed gratitude? And I think this is like a daily question, like how was I grateful today? What am I grateful for today?
And primarily, have they done it in a time that was particularly difficult, right? Like displaying gratitude when times are good is easy, but when times are hard, do you know someone that's displayed gratitude?
Sure. Our next question is there a time that you were ungrateful and regretted it?
And you can think of yourself, if you can't think of particular examples, maybe even other people talking about how the value of being ungrateful or not exercising the value of gratitude can be damaging, the good and the bad.
Yeah. You really see that in some people who are very, very negative and they don't seem very happy. Our third question is, how might you need to use gratitude in the future or the near future?
And for kids, getting back to school, this would be a great one to talk about in regards to school. Mm-hmm. But let's sum all this up with the 3 main points again. This is what we need to remember throughout the week and for next week, is that gratitude is perspective. Second, becoming resilient is impossible without gratitude. And finally, how will you work on gratitude this week? And remember, don't just make this about the lessons. Sometimes the lessons feel like they're taking your medicine, so make sure this is a fun night for you and the kids. Set aside that time to be present with your children and make a full night out of family night. Make 10 to 30 minutes family night lesson, and then have a fun activity, indoors or outdoors. Have the kids help choose that activity. A treat, maybe have the kids help make a treat, and then some other activity where you guys can play a longer game or have some fun, or just watch a movie together if that's something you don't normally do. Mm-hmm. But just make it about the family for one full night a week, and that really is going to help restore American values and reclaim the kids.
Join or start a Freedom Families United community near you. and please consider making a tax-deductible donation.